Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Cooking for the Family. I'm Dyvonne and today I'm going to share with you how I make pretzels. This is a request. My husband asked me if I could make some pretzels. It had been a while, so I said okay. So I pulled out my recipe for pretzels. I'm going to be using some unsalted butter and I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter. I'm actually going to go ahead and melt the 1 tablespoon. So this is the tablespoon of butter melted, and I'm also going to let it cool. Now while the butter is cooling, I'm going to get together my yeast mixture, and so we're going to get the yeast started. This is the yeast that I'm using. I'm using active dry yeast, and this is the one, and I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons plus 1/4 of a teaspoon. Now that's equivalent, if you're using the packets of active dry yeast, that's the equivalent of 1 packet. So in 1 packet comes 2 1/4 teaspoons, okay? Now to our bowl, I'm going to add some lukewarm water, and I'm adding 1 cup of regular tap water, and it's just warm out the tap. And when lukewarm, when you stick your finger in it, it feels nice and warm. You don't want it hot because if the water is too hot, it's going to kill your yeast. So just lukewarm is good. Now to that, I added the 2 teaspoons of light brown sugar, and then once I add my light brown sugar, then I use a fork to go in and whisk everything around. You're going to have sometimes some little granules of the yeast floating on top, little chunks, and I just kind of break those up with using the fork. And I'm also dissolving the sugar because yeast likes sugar. It helps it to grow. And if you don't have any light brown sugar on hand, you can use regular white granulated sugar. The difference between using one or the other is just that with the light brown sugar, your pretzels will have a more robust taste and flavor. And so, but either one will totally work fine in the recipe. Now next what I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting in 3 cups of regular all-purpose flour. And actually I'm using unbleached all-purpose flour. Now with using flour and measuring out flour, it is best when baking from scratch and using any kind of doughs or mixing your doughs from scratch to use a scale to weigh everything. But we don't all have a scale, in the kitchen, and that's fine. And so what I do is, and what's always been shown to me and taught to me, is that you just want to scoop. And so you want to lighten up your flour so that way as you're spooning your flour into your measuring cup, and then I just kind of gently just whisk off the top part. So you just want to use this nice spoon. And you see how I'm kind of lightening up my flour? So I'm just kind of fluffing the flour up before I scoop it into my measuring cup. So that way, just if you took your measuring cup and you put it down your flour and you scooped it up, what happens is the flour, you can end up with too much and it'll become just really packed into your measuring cup. So to avoid that and have a better measurement, you want to just go on and spoon it into your bowl. And so that was 3 cups. Now I'm also going to put in this is a 3/4 measure cup. I'm going to scoop in 3/4 cup of flour. This is my little extra flour that I'm going to have on the side just in case I need to add flour. This helps me not to add too much flour to our pretzels because too much flour is going to dry out our dough and it's going to dry out our pretzels. So what I'm doing now is I went on and I made a well in the center of the flour, and so I'm going to put the flour aside. Our yeast is nice and frothy, and this is what you want it to look like. You want it to be nice and frothy. It's going to be frothy. It's going to have a nice like foam on top. And then so we know our yeast is ready. So now we're going to add our salt to our yeast, and we're going to be putting in 1 teaspoon of regular table salt. And it only took about 5 to maybe 7 or 8 minutes for our yeast to get frothy and ready. And you see how I just put the salt in and how the salt was like on top of the foam? So you can see how nice and frothy it is. Now we can add to our yeast mixture, we're adding in that 1 tablespoon of unsalted melted butter that's nice and cool. We're going to add that in also. And in the description box below, I will have a list of all the ingredients you need to make these wonderful pretzels. And to get to the description box, underneath the title, you want to click on where it says more, or it might say show more. If you click on there, you'll get the description box. It'll open up for you. In the center well of my flour, I put my yeast mixture. Now, once I have my yeast mixture in there, what you want to do is I'm going to be taking the flour and I'm just going to incorporate it by bringing the flour from the outside of the bowl into that inside well where we have our yeast mixture and just kind of blend. I'm going to go from using my spoon to going ahead and using my spatula and just pressing it down just like that. And I'm really trying to wet the flour with that yeast mixture. Then I go ahead and I switch to my hand and I'm going to be gathering up all of the flour and all the ingredients. I'm going to gather it up into a nice tight ball. Now, when it comes to making pretzels or breads or different things you make from scratch, what I have found is that the most important thing to do is to follow the steps, because there's definitely a process, the steps in which you want to do things in order to have your baked good come out the way you want it to. And so this is our nice tight ball, and I use my fingers, and when you press like that, if it springs back, we know then it's time for us to go ahead and knead our dough. So we gathered our dough in our bowl. Now we're going to go ahead and knead our dough. And so I'm just going to use a little bit of that flour that I have right there, not too much, and I'm going to be kneading my dough. You want to knead your dough for 5 full minutes. And so I do have a stand mixer with a hook, and I could go ahead and do that and use my stand mixer to make my pretzel dough and to knead it. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to show that you don't have to have a stand mixer in order to make these pretzels. And so with the kneading, you want to make sure that you're pressing and pushing the dough with your palms. And so you see how I'm pushing the dough with my palms. Then I gather it back to me with my fingers. I rotate my dough and then I press it again from me. And then I rotate it again. And then I press it again and I push it and pull it back and forth. And I'm going to do this for 5 minutes straight. We're going to have our dough. It's going to be nice and pliable. It's going to feel nice and soft. And so if your dough, it shouldn't feel sticky. If it's a little sticky, just put a little bit more of that flour that we have to the side. Put a little bit more of the flour, and we're going to keep on kneading our dough back and forth just like that. Going to fold it, roll it, and knead it. It's been 5 minutes. I have kneaded our dough. It is nice and soft. When I press my thumb on it, you see how it just springs right back. That's what you want. I'm going to gather up the bottom, and now I'm going to have my bowl. I have a bowl that I have a little bit of vegetable oil in, about a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half of vegetable oil. I'm going to roll the dough ball around in the vegetable oil. Then I have a nice damp cloth. I'm going to cover our bowl with a nice damp cloth. This is going to keep it from drying out. We're going to let it rest and rise for about 15 minutes. My dough is at the end of the 15 minutes rising, and so I'm going to get the baking soda and water mixture together. I'm going to go ahead, I put in 1/4 of a cup of baking soda, and I have here 4.5 cups of water. And so what the baking soda and the water together is going to do, it's going to give our pretzels that nice outside finish, that nice brown outside finish, that crispy finish on the outside. That's going to come from this baking soda wash. And so I go ahead and I turn my flame on a medium so I can get the water start to simmer and then on to a boil. So it's been the 15 minutes. Our dough is looking good. And then when I press on it, my fingertips leave indentations, and then the fingertip indentations, they slowly start to pop back up. I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my working surface, not too much, because we want to be mindful that we don't want to dry out our dough. I'm not going to knead it anymore. I'm going to go ahead and cut our dough. Now this is enough for 8 to 10 pretzels. I'm going to be making 10 pretzels. You can make 8 pretzels. Your pretzels would just be a little bit thicker, a little bit bigger. And so I just kind of section it off. If I have a little bit too much on one of the sections that I've cut and I need a little bit more on another one, I just kind of take some dough from one and add it to the other one. Then while I'm working, I cover it with my damp towel again. I'm going to take a piece of the dough and then I'm just going to roll it just like that. Rolling it out, I'm going to use it with my palm of my hands. I'm going to go from the center out and go from the center out. And I'm going to roll it out to about 18 to 20 inches. Then I'm going to do the crisscross. And I'm going to bring the two ends down. And then I'm going to do that nice shape by arching the top of the dough, just like I did there, and then also kind of press and pinch the bottom. And I'm going to share with you how to do that again. And the most important thing that I have found when making the pretzels and making the pretzel shape is that you want to start off with your left hand. You're going to cross the left hand that dough over to the right hand, and I'll share with you and I'll show you step by step what that looks like. So I take the dough that's in my left hand and I cross it over and I put it in my right. I cross it over again and bring both pieces down and just push them and just kind of pinch them on the bottom. And then what you want to do is go ahead and shape the top and just make like little arches to shape the top. And something that I always remember is that it doesn't have to be perfect in order for it to taste good. And the pretzels, y'all, they come out so good. And so one more time, left hand to right hand, go over that twice. So go from the left hand to the right hand. And then I switch the hands again and I bring it down. And then I pinch when I bring it down, just like that. I'm putting the pretzels on parchment paper, but I use a little bit of some nonstick spray first, and I just go ahead and spray with some nonstick spray just a little bit. If you don't have any parchment paper and you're using just your cookie sheet, make sure that you spray it really liberally with your nonstick spray. So they're looking good. I have my water is ready, our baking soda water. It is boiling. I go ahead, I do one at a time. Now, if you want to use a bigger pot, you definitely can, and you would just go ahead and double the recipe and do a bigger pot and just double the baking soda water recipe. And you can do like 2 or 3 at a time if you like. And so we just want to leave our pretzels in the baking soda water, wash, dip them, I move them around, I make sure that also some of that solution, the water solution, also gets on top. You only want to leave them in for 20 seconds, no longer than 25 seconds. If you leave them in longer than that, what will happen is the pretzels will tend to have a metallic-y taste to them. And so you only want to put them in the baking soda and water boil only for about 20 to 25 seconds at the most. Once it's been that 20 to 25 seconds, I go ahead, I scoop them out, let any excess water drain off, and then I put them back on my sheet. Now while I'm doing this, I have my oven preheating on 425 degrees, and our pretzels are going to bake for about 12 to 15 minutes. I like to check them at about 10 minutes just to kind of see how they're doing. But your pretzels are going to get a nice, beautiful golden brown color. Now once I'm all done dipping all the pretzels in our baking soda water solution, before I bake them, I'm going to put some sea salt, some coarse sea salt on my pretzels. If you have pretzel salt, you can use that. If you have coarse kosher salt, you can use that as well. I'm going to be using my sea salt grinder. I'm going to go ahead and put some all over, and you can put as little or as much as you want, or if you don't want any salt on them, you can leave the salt off if you prefer. Also, if you want to make them sweet and have them be a cinnamon sugar pretzel, you don't have to put any salt on it, and then just go on and put some cinnamon sugar. In the description box, I'll put my recipe for cinnamon sugar. I'm going to set my timer, let these go ahead and bake up. Well, our pretzels are out of the oven. This is what they are looking like, but we are not done yet, y'all. I'm going to be putting on some nice butter, and that's how we're going to be finishing them off. I'm going to put some butter on them, and if you're going to be doing the cinnamon sugar, you would go ahead and do this next step as well and put some butter. So I have some nice cooled melted butter. Our pretzels are still fresh out of the oven. I'm going to use my little pastry silicone brush that I like to use, and I'm just going to go ahead and douse all of them with a little bit of butter. It soaks into the pretzel just slightly, and oh, it comes out so good. It really gives the pretzels that beautiful, nice finish and taste. Also, I'm using unsalted butter, and this is 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. The 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter is enough for all 10 of the pretzels. Well, let's go ahead and give our pretzels a try. I went on and I made some nice honey mustard, and I'll have that a recipe for the honey mustard that I like to use in the description box below as well. So our pretzels are looking good. They are just, oh, the texture is right on the money. I'm going to go ahead and give y'all the first bite. This bite right here, that's for you. Go ahead and take your bite. Now I'm going to take my bite and see how we did. The pretzel came out so good, y'all. Let's go ahead and give a try with a little bit of the honey mustard. And this honey mustard also works great on chicken strips as well. That bite right there with the honey mustard's for you. Let's see how it tastes. Y'all, the honey mustard. If you like honey mustard, it's definitely a recipe to try. I hope you enjoyed spending time with me today in my kitchen. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I invite you to hit that subscribe button. It's free. If you like this video and appreciate the content, don't forget to show it some love. Give it a thumbs up. Click share. Share this video with a friend or family. And don't forget to click that notification bell so you can come back and visit me again in my kitchen. And remember, it's always good when Dyvonne is cooking for the family. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.